Hi there. In this example, we are going to create a game designed for, say, 4 or 5 year olds. But in doing so, what we're going to learn really is smooth movement around the screen for our character using some buttons on our keyboard. And we're going to create our own little scoring system too. So we're going to have to keep our cat, we're going to bring in our bad sprite, which is going to be our dog, and we're going to learn how the two of them are going to interact with each other. So a consequence of, say, when the two of them collide. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to shrink my cat just a little bit. I'm going to go up to the shrink icon just up to the top here, which we've used before. And I'm just going to shrink 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Okay. So first things first. So what we want, last time we programmed movement together, we used the up, down, left and right keys. And when we did that, we moved our character up, down, left and right, but it was a bit jumpy when our character was moving. So what we're going to do is going to be a lot smoother today. We're going to program it slightly differently, using a different toolbox, using sensing today. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go to events here, and I'm going to bring in our green flag. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we are going to bring in our forever loop. Okay, our forever sandwich. Okay, so anything that goes inside our loop is going to happen forever. Now, last time when we programmed our buttons, we used this piece of code here when the space key is pressed. Very important, okay? But we had different blocks scattered all over the place. But what we're going to do now is we're going to program our buttons so only if we press them. If we don't press them, nothing is going to happen. Okay, so if you bring in this if box here, and you can see, look at the shape of it, and anything inside this if, inside there is going to be a consequence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up this if, and I'm going to put it inside my forever here. Okay, so what this if means is if I press the space key, something's going to happen. If my cat touches another character, something's going to happen. If the score is a certain number, something's going to happen. So you can use this if for loads of different things. Okay, what I'm going to quickly do here is I'm just going to quickly bring in our background, our XY background that we've used before. Okay, and if we can remember, when we were moving a character left or right across the screen, we were changing numbers to do with X, and if we were moving a character up and down the screen, we were changing numbers to do with Y. Okay, and numbers that go upwards, okay, get larger, numbers that goes downwards on the Y-axis get smaller, and on this red X line, if my cat moves right across the screen, the X number gets bigger, and when my character is left across the screen, the X numbers get smaller. Okay, it'll make more sense as we go along. So the first button that we're going to actually program here is going to be inside sensing, and if you scroll down here ever so slowly, you'll see key space pressed, and once I pick that up, it actually fits nicely in here. But I don't actually want to program my space key. If I click on the little black arrow here, I'm going to program the right arrow. So when I press the right arrow, then something is going to happen. So what do I want him to do? Well, if I go to motion, I have a piece of code in here called change X by 10. So when that number gets bigger, change X by 10. So I'm going to pick it up, put it in there, press my green flag, and I press my right arrow, and you can see my cat moves very quickly across the screen compared to the way it was last time, which is very good. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in another if. I'm going to leave it down here for the time being. I'm not going to connect it up. If my left arrow is pressed, I'm going to change X by, if I pick him up, remember that if you go to the left, the numbers on the X get smaller. So we're going to change X by, click inside the box, -10. And now if I press the left arrow, it won't work, and the reason being it's not connected up. Now you have to be very careful when you do connect them up, because if I put it in there like that, it won't work properly. So make sure your if goes directly underneath the if, so they're perfectly in line with each other. And now if I press my left key, my right key, I have a cat that can move left and right. Very good. So I have a problem though. When I move my cat to the left, he seems to be doing a bit of a moonwalk. He's going backwards. Okay, I've never seen a cat run backwards before. So when you want a character to face a certain way, you want them to point in a certain direction. So you can see here we've got point in direction 90. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put one of them in each key. So one inside the right arrow, one of them inside the left arrow, but one of them is wrong. What does 90 mean? So if you click on 90, it will tell you. It says 90 is right, so when you press the right arrow, point in the direction right, and then when you press the left arrow, point in the direction 90, which is right, which is wrong. So left should be matched with left, which is minus 90. So what does that do then? So if we press the right arrow, we go to the right. When I press the left arrow, I go upside down. So like anything in programming, when you make a little tweak, you think you're fantastic, and the computer does something that you don't want it to do. So we go inside our little information box here. We can give our cat an awesome name, so I'm going to call mine Bob. And then see where it says rotation style down here. We make sure our cat can never go upside down. Click on that little middle option there. Okay, then I'm going to press back to get out. And now we can move left and right nice and quickly, which is awesome. Okay, so our cat can move left and right. The only thing he can't do is go up and down. So we need to program 2 more buttons. Okay, and the buttons we need are the up arrow and the down arrow. So let's go back into control, and we're going to bring in another if, and I'm just going to leave it down here on its own. So if the, and let's do the up arrow first, so bring in key space pressed. So if the space key is pressed, then there is a consequence. Well, we'll go to motion, and we'll bring in change Y by 10. And let's not forget, when we connect this up, not to put it inside the if, but nicely underneath, and change the space to the up arrow. So if the up arrow is pressed, change Y by 10, and now I have a cat that can go up and left and right, which is great. The only problem being now is he needs to come down. So to finish off our buttons, if we bring in one more if, put it down here, and if we go to sensing, bring in our last button, and we're going to change it to the down arrow. So if the down arrow is pressed, well, what are we going to do when we press the down arrow? Well, we're going to change Y by, and the numbers get smaller, minus 10. So change Y by minus 10. Perfect stuff. Pick up your little if, put it underneath, and you're ready to go. So we have a cat that can move up, down, left and right, which is fantastic. It's exactly what we want to do. Brilliant. Okay, so we're nearly there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just bring in a piece of code. We need to make sure that when our game starts, our sprite starts in the right position. Okay, so I want my cat to start somewhere around here. Okay, and to do that, what we're going to do now is bring in a separate piece of code. And I'm just going to place that over here. Okay, and if you can remember from the animations that we've made, if we go to motion, all our coordinates are inside here, and we have to remember that we have to be specific on where exactly we want our cat to start. So if I place him here, you can see every time I move my cat, my numbers change here. The computer is telling me where exactly he is. I want him to be roughly around here. So I'm going to bring in go to, so when the green flag is clicked, go to, X is going to be minus 200 and Y can be minus 60. We'll keep the numbers nice and easy. So if I pick him up and move him up here, press the green flag, he's always going to start that way. And we always must make sure that when it starts, he faces rightwards. So we just make sure that that is right. Perfect. So now press up, down, left and right. When the green flag is clicked, our cat always starts there, which is exactly what we want. Perfect. Okay, so just looking at our cat here, what is our problem here is the fact that he just keeps gliding across the screen, and in fact, when we're playing this game, it's very easy for us to hide off it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to bring in a few touches here. So that the most obvious one we can bring in to keep our cat on the screen is to bring in our little piece of code here, if on edge bounce. If I pick this up now, instead of putting it inside an if, I actually want it to happen all of the time. So I'm just going to put it right at the very, very bottom of this if. Okay, or at the bottom of this forever, sorry. Right at the bottom. Follow that line on the outside all the way down, and it's just there. It's not inside any of these ifs, because it's going to happen forever. So you press your green flag, and now you'll see that your cat can never go off the screen. So there's no hiding for our cat now. Okay? And the next thing we're going to do then is we're going to make sure our cat can change his costume, because we do have two costumes, so our cat can look like he's running around the screen. So I'll go to scripts now, and we go to looks. We're going to bring in our little piece of code in here, next costume. So I'm going to pick it up, and I'm just going to put one in there, and one in here. So we've got one in the right arrow, one in the left arrow. We need to put one inside the up arrow, and one inside the down arrow. So you have a next costume inside each of the 4 buttons. So when I zoom out here, you can see that fairly long piece of code now. Okay, look how much you've done. It's fantastic. So I'll press the green flag to start my little game. My cat starts there in these coordinates, and he's facing rightwards. And if I press my buttons, you'll see that my cat can go up, down, left and right, which is perfect, and he cannot hide off the screen. Okay, brilliant stuff. Excellent. So that is our cat. So what we can do now is we can program or bring in our own background. So I'm just going to choose the brick wall and the stairs. Okay. And I'm just going to go into scripts here on my stage. And as you can see, there's not much code inside your stage here. There's no motion boxes because the stage can't physically move. Okay, but what we are going to do inside the stage here is we're actually going to create our scoring system, which is very, very important. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to bring in our green flag here. And for the first time, we're going to use this toolbox here called Data. So if you click on it, you'll see there's actually nothing inside here. Okay, you've got make a variable and make a list. Now a list will be for school boards and stuff like that, but we don't really need it. We're going to make a variable, and a variable is something that when you play a computer game, it's something that changes as you play. It could be a score in a game like FIFA when you score a goal. It could be a timer. It could be points. It could be lives. Could be anything that you want. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make a variable, and it's going to be called lives. L-I-V-E-S. Lives. Okay, I'm just going to pick it up and place it just there on the screen. Lives. Okay, brilliant stuff. Now the thing about our game is the computer knows nothing about how many lives we're going to have. It doesn't know how many lives we're going to have at the start of the game, or it doesn't even know when the game is going to finish. So what we're going to do now is we're going to be playing around, setting the score, and setting the amount of lives at the beginning of our game, and telling the computer when our game is going to finish.